Phyllis's next guest has some powerful and timely observations about society. Cheryl Benton is founder and publisher of The Three Tomatoes, a digital lifestyle magazine for women who aren't kids. As CEO of the magazine, her official title is Head Tomato. Cheryl is a passionate advocate for advancing women and girls in business and society. She also leads the Private Sector Development Committee to lift girls out of poverty. Her latest book is Can You Hear Us Now? The sequel to her highly acclaimed book, Can You See Us Now? You are watching Profonde TV with host Phyllis Haynes.
Cheryl, it is a delight to have you here. Really a pleasure.
Well,
So you are
Phyllis. Yeah,
you're a busy person.
here.
Oh, I'm glad. I'm glad you're happy to be here. I have so much to ask you. I get all kinds of lovely information from you, and I just appreciate you. So tell me, how do you have time to do everything you do and sit down and write? You've got a best-selling book, Can You See Us Now? And now the sequel, Can You Hear Us Now? How do you have time?
Well, I think you make the time for the things that you love to do, and the things that you're passionate about. And when I thought for a long time about writing a book, I mean, the first book was a very long time coming, and it really totally changed direction, because originally it was going to be a nonfiction book, and it was going to be stories of wonderful women that I've learned so much from, of celebrating life in midlife and beyond. and I just kept getting stuck in it, and I couldn't move forward with it for I didn't know why at the time. And one day I happened to be on the train coming home from Manhattan, and I wrote down two sentences that came to me, and I'm like, this needs to be a novel. This is a story that will be much more interesting and much more entertaining and still get the same message across, which is really that life doesn't stop when we turn 50. And in fact, it can get even better, and 50 and 60s and 70s. And it's all about changing the perceptions of aging, and also how important it is to have the support of our best friends. So once I had those first two sentences, it was really extraordinary, Phyllis, because I had never written a novel before. And I made time on weekends to do this. That was sort of my thing. I would make time on Saturdays and Sundays to write. And once I knew who the three main characters were, they took over the book. And I honestly felt like the book wrote itself. I wrote the book in probably under 3 months. So it was really
Wow.
I know, I amazed myself, but as I said, the characters took over. And then I didn't see a sequel to this book at all at the time. When I finished it, I felt very good that the story of these three women who were best friends since their very first jobs out of college, and had always been there for each other. And then they turned 50, and the world that once was their oyster, they lived in New York City, they all had these fabulous lives. They turned 50, and things started to go downhill pretty quickly. And but we resolve all this through the course of the book. So I felt the story was finished. And then the strangest thing happened about, I don't know, a year and a half later. I could only describe it as I felt like the characters were starting to speak to me again. And I'm like, there's more to their story. So that's how the second book came about.
Well, one of the things, the books are actually fun. You are right. You're telling a story in a lighthearted way about real life struggles, but it is very entertaining. But one of the words I would associate with you and your book is permission. There's something about reading your book that gives you permission. I'm on the right track here, do you think?
Yeah, I like that. I haven't thought of it that way, but I think you're absolutely right. I've always used the term it's about saying yes to life. It's about saying yes to new experiences, and we don't say yes often enough. And a lot of times we put our own roadblocks in the way. So permission is, yeah, you're absolutely right on target with that.
So I know we're going to get into all the things that you do, but I'm very interested in your observations about womanhood. So what is it that happens to older women or women over 50 in your view? Now that you've written the novel and traveled it,
Right,
what
right.
is your view of what happens to us?
Well, what starts to happen usually starts to happen somewhere in our 40s, and not all women feel this way, but certainly a lot of us start to feel this way. It's uh, we we look around, and it's not us. It's really how we're suddenly starting to be perceived by others differently. And it's when women often say that they start to feel invisible. And there's a lot of truth to that because, first of all, I came out of the marketing business for years. For many, many years, once a woman turned 45, we weren't even a demographic that, anybody cared about unless they were marketing, help me, I'm falling devices or incontinence products or something along those lines. And and it's true. I mean, they just weren't. So from that standpoint, we were falling off. Oh, I was having conversations as I was turning 50 in my early 50s. I was living and working in New York City, and I knew all these fabulous, wonderful women who were over 50, 60, 70, some even into their 80s. But we were starting to have these conversations as we were getting into our 50s about suddenly feeling marginalized. I was realized one day I was the oldest person in the conference room. Other women were getting to that point where suddenly their opinions weren't being valued anymore. And then you look around and you look at all the media, and everything is geared, and it still is to a very large extent geared towards, a much younger demographic. We live in a society that's, very much youth oriented, and it still is. And it's starting to change. Thank goodness. We've been trying to be a voice for that, as are others too, but it's been slow. So and then a lot of women start to really feel that and process that internally, and they do start to feel marginalized, and they do start to feel that their doors are closing on them. The opportunities aren't there. It's also a time of life where for so many women it's a time of change. Women go through divorce, they lose husbands, friends move away. They very often get pushed out of jobs that they've been in for years and years. In fact, that's addressed in my first novel. Two of them are
Right.
actually pushed out of their careers and find new directions. But the whole thing is that we don't have to accept that. And there are so many opportunities for women in midlife and beyond. We just have to seize them, and we have to give ourselves permission, as you said.
Well, talk about seizing. I mean, here you are with your marketing background and marketing background awards. I mean, incredible awards. You then form with two other people the Three Tomatoes. Now, first of all, I mean, the use of the word tomato is just outrageously funny. But can you just tell us about this Three Tomatoes, the history of it, what it is, and I'm sure everybody's going to want to subscribe. So tell me about it.
Well, that's great. So everyone always says, "So what's a tomato?" So in
Yeah.
my father's generation, instead of saying a woman's hot, saying she's hot, they would say, "Now that's a tomato." And if you
Uh,
ever watched Mad Men, which was one of my favorite shows, of course, having been in the ad agency business, but very often in that show they would refer to a woman as a tomato. So to me, and a tomato is she's smart, she's savvy, as I like to say, she knows her way around a man and a martini. She knows how to order wine for herself. So being a tomato is a good thing. So we never wanted the Three Tomatoes to be about age. I mean, we are age, but it just, I love the term tomatoes. And then when I was working in the agency business, we had this wonderful boss and mentor. He actually ran the agency, and it was myself and two other women. We became very good friends, and we each were running different segments of the business. And he had
Yeah.
coined us the Three Tomatoes. So when I had this idea, as I was saying, I knew all these fabulous, smart women in New York, and we were starting to feel marginalized as we were, getting into our 50s. And I thought, well, you know what? If no one's talking to us, we're just going to talk to each other about the conversations we were having then. Like, where do you find clothes where you don't look like your teenage daughter? And where do you find a restaurant where you actually can hear yourselves and have a conversation? And the name, I mean, it was a no-brainer. It's like, it's got to be called the Three Tomatoes. So I just started this little newsletter. I sent it to 60 friends, and it just took off from there, Phyllis. It just was amazing, and friends started sharing it with other people. And then I realized, well, gosh, we actually need a website now, at least to get people to sign up. And then it just grew, and people wanted to be part of that. Wonderful people came and wanted to be contributors to the website, and it's just grown from there. And it's been the most extraordinary experience. And as I said, when I started it, it was just for the fun to see what would happen. And now it's what I'm doing more than full time, that's for sure. But I love it, and it's been great to see it grow and expand to events and coast to coast and city specific newsletters. And
Let me interrupt you because I want
yeah,
to say I love this newsletter that you've created because it's a resource. It's a way of looking at possible entertainment that is so beyond the regular listings that you find in the newspaper or magazine. You've consciously picked out fabulous walks and wine experiences and clothing options and a way of feeling like you're not left out. It's almost what I would call it has its own universe that you can step into where you are the star. It is a fabulous thing you've created. Do you have curators working with you, or is it just the three of you curating all of this?
well, we have a ton of fabulous contributors who are experts in all different fields, and I'm very proud of them because they bring such great content to us. I mean, whether it's stylists or travel experts, we have a very robust health and wellness section because that's so important to all of us, especially as we're growing older, to stay, healthy and our well-being. So we have really we have doctors, we have, exercise experts. So those people are there, and those are a great resource to us. And the Three Tomatoes team is now actually seven Three
Oh, good.
Tomatoes. My daughter was always involved really from the very beginning, and she's been terrific. She does a lot of our social media work and whatnot. Plus, she gives a lens to the younger side now of our audience as well. And then we have four city specific editors, because once a week we have newsletters for New York City, Los Angeles, San Francisco, and now Miami. And basically, what those are is, here's events for us, for women in our age group. Here's what's coming up that we think that you would like to do in our town. So as opposed to a lot of the listings that you find, I mean, there's listings everywhere, but again, usually they're geared to the 20-somethings who are out bar hopping and not really, and we don't need 100 things to do. So we basically, have several interesting things each week that are things that we would want to do in our city, and a lot of them are insider things that we get to share, and that makes it interesting and fun. And as you said, it makes women in our age group say, yes, that's for me. That's what we want them to say. Yes, that's me. And now there's something talking to me.
All right, so I want to clarify when you say insider things, because now we have this pandemic, continuing pandemic. You mean that it's high level inside connected activity, some
Yes,
special VIP events that you can get
right.
access to. Okay,
Right,
not just because
exactly.
they're
Not yes,
inside.
I
Okay.
know when we say inside now, that's such a different meaning, right?
Yeah, yeah. But how was the pandemic early on for your project? How did it impact your service? Did you look for different things when we were all in lockdown?
Well, we did. And because I realized, well, very early on, one of the things that we started that has just been so wonderful, and I've made so many new friends. Very early on, I have a lot of friends in New York City, women who are single, living in apartment buildings. And when we went into lockdown, it was very isolating for so many of them. And we would get on the phone and we would talk, and then I thought, there's a lot of other women out there that are feeling this too. So I put out like one little blurb in the newsletter, and I said, look, we're going to start a Wednesday night Zoom cocktails, and we'll talk about anything we want to talk about. If you want to join us, let me know. And we've ended up, and that now I kept the group relatively small because it could have gotten, I got so many responses, I didn't put it out there again. But it's now almost 2 years, and we have this amazing group of women who every Wednesday we have a conversation for an hour. We never know what's going to happen with the conversation. It's very free flowing, and it's been terrific. And some of these women I had never met in person before, and we've become friends. It's so amazing how you can have this connectiveness. Thank goodness for Zoom that we have had these technologies that really were able to connect us. And now some of us who didn't know each other before have actually met in person, and it's just been a really, really wonderful thing. So we did that early on. And then we did a lot of Zoom events, really wonderful, fun Zoom events because we couldn't do our live events, and those were terrific. And we just kept being there for our audience and providing them with content again that was talking to them. And I think it helped to keep us all connected. I know it helped me stay connected with everyone.
And I'm sure I like the shopping on the newsletter and on your website. I'm not giving a plug. This is not a paid advertisement. But if you're sitting at home and you're locked in your house and you want to look at a lot of good stuff that's been carefully selected, I like looking at the way you've laid it out on your website that you
Oh,
can,
good.
yeah,
Thank you. Again, we try to find whether it's, clothes or items, things that appeal to us and in our group. In fact, we found an item this week. I'm going to have to actually buy it now to find out if it actually works. But it's this little device, it's a little gadget that
Mhm.
you take a hard-boiled egg and you put it into this gadget, and you put a little water and you shake it, and it peels the hard-boiled egg.
I
The
saw
shell
that.
comes right off, and it's gotten the most amazing reviews from like everyone. And I'm like, yeah, and it's cheap. I think it's like $12 or something. So I'm like, I have to get this because I still don't understand how it does this. So I'll report back if it actually works.
Well, now I'm going to ask you about something that you're not prepared to answer, but let's see. You look at all these things. One of the worst things about being over 50 are all the face creams that are sold to us. I'm telling you, I must, and I don't even think I'm the worst. I don't buy all of them like some of my friends, but My experience is they don't do anything. Have you, I mean, I don't want you to name a product, but have you found anything that has ever really worked?
Well, we're sold, we all get sold on the miraculous, how it's going to, totally change your life. I think that the things that I've learned from so many women that I've dealt with over the years who are, in different parts of the beauty industry, and then women who just have skin that looks fabulous, that it's all about keeping your skin, the moisture in your skin. And any good moisturizer over the counter. I mean, and it doesn't have to be, a $300 jar. It could be Noxzema, and some of that's what my grandmother had, the most beautiful skin, like well into her 80s, and all she ever did was Noxzema. So I really think there's something to that. I met another woman once who had extraordinary skin, and I think she had just turned 80, and I said, "What is your secret?" And she said, "Vaseline."
You know, I'm glad because you probably get people pitching you things and sending you things, and
We do. And
I'm
I have this, I always call it when friends come to my house because I get a lot of products sent. I have this big cabinet in my bathroom and they all go shopping there. I'm like, okay, try this one and that one. And they're lovely and the creams are lovely and I appreciate them. But yeah, I still haven't had that moment where I woke up a week later and said, oh my gosh, my face is transformed. Look at me. So we'll
Cheryl.
probably
You've
never get another skincare advertiser out now that
Oh
I said
no,
that right.
no. I'm sure you will. Cheryl, you've had the opportunity of being the behind the scenes person, coming up with the message and the marketing concept. And now you're kind of being thrust, as I see you and watched you over the years, you're being thrust to the forefront. What does that feel like? How was that different? And what's next for you? Do you have any clues about where you're going to take your abilities and your work?
Well, that's a great question. And I'll tell you, when I first started the newsletter, I was anonymous. I didn't say who I was. I was so behind the scenes of it. I just wanted to put it out there and see what happened. And I'm like, if people don't like this or they don't need to know who I am. Plus, it actually freed me up to be able to say some of the things that I wanted to say. And then about a year into it, actually Barry Smaldone, who's a media person in New York, had gotten on my mailing list, and she reached out and she said, I love your newsletter. I've been getting it. I don't know how she got on the list. And she said, and I think your first anniversary is coming up. She said, we should do an event. And I'm like, you mean a real live event where we're going to have people come? And she said, yes. And I'm like, well, who's going to want to come to this? Well, it turned out our very first event, 100 people, actually over 100 people showed up for it. And they keep showing up. So that's been a really good thing. So, yeah, so I was thrust out from behind the three tomatoes. And, and I really like the role now. I always wanted to have the three tomatoes stand on its own so it represents everybody. A lot of websites, it's the founder or the CEO who becomes the brand, and I am really not the brand of the three tomatoes. I want people to take from it what they feel is theirs, but I am a spokesperson for our generation of women, and I do, and I'm a cheerleader. That's really how I like to see my role. I'm a cheerleader for saying, letting women know that it's never too late. We're never too old. You can get, if you can't climb over that mountain, walk around it. There's a lot of really so many options for us, and just to keep us going and keep us positive.
Okay, that would be normally the end of an interview, but I can't go without talking about your charitable work and your commitment to girls. Can you talk about what you've done and what your interests are in that realm?
Yeah. Well, for many years, I've been involved in groups that are really helping and supporting girls. the first was with a nonprofit group in New York City, which was with uh, disadvantaged kids in the school systems and how we were going to make sure that they got the kinds of opportunities they needed. And then I got very involved at the United Nations with UN Women, which is the United Nations really gender equity group, advocacy group for promoting equality and the rights of women around the world. And once I started, and at the time I was really ignorant, honestly, on so many issues, and really trying to understand what women in so many of these countries are really going through and what girls are going through, especially. And it just was something that I realized I really wanted to jump in and be involved in. So I was involved with that for many, many years. I was involved with another wonderful organization for that also focuses on girls around the world. So to me,
You can plug. You can plug. Is there some organization that we should be conscious of now that you can think of that we
yeah,
should?
the
Yes.
most recent one was Plan International USA. Actually, they're a global organization too, and their focus is on helping girls in developing countries, making sure they get an education, ending child marriages. Violence against women is enormous. I mean, we have that here in our country too. I mean, we have all these issues here as well with girls. But one of the things that I always felt, and a lot of people, which is fine, they really want to be involved with grassroots organizations in their own neighborhoods, but we need to stand up and speak for these other women and girls, because in so many cases they don't have a voice, and if we don't stand up and help them, it's just not going to happen. And I really do believe, and we've seen this, Phyllis, I know women are changing the world. I mean, we've had so many changes, and I think we're just so much more of a powerful force right now than we've ever been. And girls are our future, and I think women can change the world. I really truly believe that. So that's why I put so much of my emphasis on my charitable work into those areas.
And I'm sure that if people subscribe to the Three Tomatoes, they can also write to you and find out, hey, how can I participate in some of this important work? Well, I have to say that you are a delight. I probably could ask you 10 more questions about exercise and all kinds of things in what your lifestyle is like. But I think there'll be room for a future conversation, Cheryl. And I really thank you for your time. It's been a real pleasure.
Well, I thank you for the opportunity. I really, really appreciate it. And you're such a super special human being. So thank you.
I've seen a lot of change, been through a lot of pain. Some things are not the same as they were a year ago, but all will be okay. I move on each and every day. The past is where it stays, way back a year ago. I've changed for the better this time. I thought I would never be fine. I strive just to say I'm alright, and for the first time in a long time I'm alright. I've seen a lot of change, been through a lot of pain. Some things are not the same as they were a year ago, but all will be okay. I move on each and every day. The past is where it stays, way back a year ago. I'm not falling. I'll push all my chips and call all in. I'll bet on myself, you keep stalling. I hear destiny life. Still nobody knows, but I'ma choose what's right and take what comes and goes. And ain't no one in life holding me back no more. I've seen a lot of change, been through a lot of pain. Some things are not the same as they were a year ago, but all will be okay. I move on each and every day. The past is where it stays. Way back a year ago. Back a year ago.